Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals, I'm your host Hannah, and this is Under the Scrubs. Holy cow, we are on episode 4. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but to me it's a little mind-boggling that even one, I started a podcast, but also two, I've actually been doing this for 4 weeks now, and I'm actually enjoying it. It's just, been fun to research. It tickles my tism a little bit, and just kind of like starting a community of people coming together. I think that's pretty neat. If you haven't already, go over and follow the Insta at Under the Scrubs Podcast. Also, subscribe if you want to. No pressure. I do upload photos that usually go along with the episodes. Last week, I told you guys that I have sourdough, and that's going to be my whole personality. And I'm proud to say that my coworkers informed me that Boba Fett does not have rabies, and I 100% have been feeding him incorrectly. I am in full swing, though, of making everything bread related from scratch, like bagels, English muffins, cinnamon swirl bread, pretzel bites, anything. If you see my fiance and he looks a little bit bigger, you shut your mouth. He's being fed well. For today's timeout, I'm going to get up on my soapbox for a second. So if you're not into that, just skip ahead. Okay. This is a hot take. I am a firm believer that if you cannot set aside your biases that you have towards a certain group of people, whatever it may be, you should not be in the medical field. If you judge a patient based off of whatever they choose to do in their life, you shouldn't be in the medical field. I saw someone recently share something pretty hateful on my Facebook. And it's, pretty concerning considering that they are in the healthcare field. I know it's like the medical professional's right to refuse an assignment if it infringes on their own personal beliefs or whatever it is, right? But honestly, grow up. During COVID, do you think I refused to take care of the patients who caught COVID, but they were like, oh, it doesn't exist? And then I just watch them agonal breathing and be like, oh, does it exist now? No, I took care of them the same way I'd take care of all my other patients. I worked with this gal once and we were on the same 3 nights in a row. We were talking about how great our patients were. We sat next to each other. On the 3rd night, I was told by the charge nurse that I was going to have to swap a patient with her. During report, I had asked her why we were swapping because I was like, you guys are getting along just fine. And I swear to God, she said, because she found out that her patient was a lesbian and married to a woman, she couldn't support that and take care of this patient. I said it during report, and I'll say it again in case she's listening right now. You're an asshole. Even the patient asked me when I came in to introduce myself, and I'm like, hey, I'm actually going to be taking over. The patient was like, oh, is it because I'm a lesbian? She got kind of weird when I said that. I was like, no, I played it off. But holy shit, that's hurtful. Patients come to us vulnerable, sick, and in need of help. Who are we to judge them how they live their life? If you want to identify as a plant and request that I open the curtains in the morning so you can photosynthesize, pop off, queen, here you go. Do I think it's silly? Yeah, but so is hobby horsing. They're riding around on a freaking stick that's got a horse head on it, jumping and shit. Who cares? When I clock out at the end of my day, I know 2 things. 1, you were taken care of to the best of my ability in the highest level of care I can give, and I did everything in my power to advocate for you. Okay? I clock out, I immediately develop amnesia, and I go home and I don't think about work until the next morning at 5:25 when my alarm goes off. And if you want to bring religion into it, God said to love thy neighbor, not thy straight neighbor, not thy white neighbor, just your neighbor. Don't be a dick. Okay, stepping off my soapbox now, thank you. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about semaglutide, or GLP-1 RA drugs that are insanely popular. Well, they're becoming more and more popular. They're supposed to become more affordable this year. I know it's a godsend for some people, but is it really all it's cracked up to be? Are the risks worth the benefit? But God, you got to commit lifelong to this. Ugh. Sources for today's episode are newsmedical.net, UCLA Health Journal of the Society for Biomedical Diabetes Research, the New England Journal of Medicine, MedPage Today, NBC News, Epic Research, Lawsuit Information Center. It's called JAMA, but it's the Journal of American Medicine Association, so I'm just going to keep calling it JAMA. JAMA of Ophthalmology, Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery, and Psychiatry, PubMed, and JAMA Health Forum. Ozempic, tirzepatide, GLP-1s, Wegovy, semaglutide, whatever hell we else, whatever we call it. The latest drug to come out, and it gives a light at the end of the tunnel for individuals that maybe struggle with their weight. This magical injection, usually how it's taken, but you can do tablets as well, is injected into your subcutaneous tissue, and it mimics a hormone that reduces your appetite and slows down your gastric emptying. GLP-1 or glucagon like peptide 1 is a hormone that is released when you eat, and it comes from the intestines, travels up to your pancreas, binds to receptors on your beta cells, which in return stimulates them to release insulin, thus resulting in lower blood sugar levels. So these GLP-1 medications are antagonistic, and they address insulin production, reduces glucagon, which prevents the release of glucose storage from the liver, and you also have like that fullness response that elevates insulin sensitivity and causes weight loss because you eat less. Doesn't sound too bad, right? Now, there are side effects to consider, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain, hypoglycemia, pancreatitis, gallbladder issues, injection site reactions like redness, pain, and swelling, maybe cancer. There have been documented rare side effects like allergic reactions, heart failure, and increased risks of certain type of cancer. GI issues are most frequently reported adverse effects during the clinical trials like nausea and diarrhea, with constipation, abdominal pain, and dyspepsia being relatively common. These side effects typically go away once you get further into the treatment, only really being relevant in the beginning of when you increase the dose or you're just starting out. The higher the dose, the more prevalent these side effects will be. A quantitative article published in the Journal of the Society for Biomedical Diabetes Research was published in 2015. So the pancreas, we know her, we love her, was shown in this study, mainly in rats, that were on exenatide for 10 weeks, and they had chronic pancreatic damage in 30% of the rats. Liraglutide was only modestly associated with pancreatitis. Now, these findings were accidental. The study was to focus on beta cell proliferation and other diabetic-related aspects, but they just so happened to notice the damage to the pancreas. The risk of pancreatitis also goes up in patients that have high triglycerides, they drink, gallstones, maybe smoke, use tobacco, obesity, biliary and pancreatic cancer, or you really have any kind of tumor. Now, let's look over at the heart. A once-weekly GLP-1 dulaglutide significantly increased the heart rate compared to the placebo dose. But then you go and look at lixisenatide during a 28-day study, and it significantly reduced the heart rate by like 3.6 beats per minute. Go over and check out liraglutide, and it raised the heart rate by 5.3 beats per minute. This shit's all over the place, okay? Your bones. Liraglutide was associated with significantly decreased risk of bone fractures, but then exenatide was actually shown to have an increased risk of bone fractures. Okay, this research article comes to the conclusion that GLP-1 medications don't show a cause and effect between GLP-1 meds and pancreatic issues or thyroid cancer, but it's still up in the air. And it's like we still need more research, and that was like written 10 years ago, so like things have definitely changed, right? But is this effective in weight loss? Yeah, absolutely, man. A research article written for the New England Journal of Medicine looked at 1,961 adults with a BMI of 30 or over, and they were not diabetic, and they took them on a 68-week treatment plan. In that 68 weeks, the mean change in body weight from the baseline was 15% in the semaglutide group versus the placebo, which lost like 2.4. More participants in the treatment group reached the goal of weight reduction by 5% or more. Nausea and diarrhea were most common side effects, ranging mid to moderate, and subsided the further along that they got into the treatment. Sounds nice, right? But like, what about when you stop taking this GLP-1? People who were taking a weekly semaglutide along with a lifestyle intervention, so like diet and exercise, still regained 2/3 of the weight that they had lost within a year after stopping the medication. Surprise, it's actually the other part of that study for the New England Journal of Medicine. It was the extension phase that followed 327 participants who had stopped the medication and discontinued lifestyle counseling. They regained 11.6% of the weight back, which lowered the net weight loss of the study. In the step 4 of the trial, they studied the effects of withdrawal from the participants who were overweight or obese and not diabetic. The placebo group gained 6.9% of their lost weight back versus a group that was placed on a maintenance dose. Epic Research studied 20,274 patients that were prescribed semaglutide and followed them for 60 weeks. They achieved weight loss between 8 to 11%, but after discontinuing semaglutide, 17.1 of those patients, all the weight came back, or they even exceeded their initial weight. They studied 17,733 patients that were prescribed liraglutide, and 18.7% of that group gained all their weight back or surpassed their initial weight. So, what's the withdrawal symptoms that occur when you stop the medication? Okay, you have insane hunger. Think about it. You're taking a medication that turns off the protection mode in your brain that's like, hey, we're starving, you need to eat food, right? You shed the pounds because you're eating less, and your body doesn't think it's going into starving or crisis mode. And then when you take that drug away, that food noise and the cravings come back with a vengeance, and it's incredibly hard to deal with. A popular influencer and TikToker, Remy Bader, tells her story of this in 2023. When she stopped taking her Ozempic, she gained back double the weight. She was initially prescribed it for her type 2 diabetes, she had insulin resistance, and she was struggling with her weight. When she got off the medication, a few months later, she got into really bad binge eating habits and the weight came back on. I cannot imagine struggling with your weight and body image, taking this medication that's supposed to help you become a healthier version of yourself, but then when you stop it, you're going to gain the weight back. You know, Remy's back on like losing weight and stuff like that. She says it's not Ozempic. She's just working out and finding new ways to move her body, be active, and eat right, which is great. But I mean, with this medication, you really a lot of the time have to kind of commit to lifelong. And like, I don't even know if I want to commit to a kid. I got to commit to a medication? No, not on me. Healthline writes an article discussing semaglutide and how we are seeing that the rapid weight loss from these medications can cause a decrease in muscle mass and lessen bone density, and it also lowers your resting metabolic rate. That leads to something called sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is the gradual loss of muscle strength and function that typically happens as we age. This negatively affects the individual's life as they have reduced stamina and the ability to function day to day like normal. Dr. Karl Nadolsky is an endocrinologist, and he talks on this article about how he had a small group of participants that had a DEXA scan. It looked at bone mineral density, and the total mass loss was nearly 14 kilograms, while nearly 8.5 kilograms, about 60% of it, was fat loss. The other 5 kilograms had lean mass loss. You know, his thing with this is to, be extra vigilant about nutritional intake, definitely your protein to prevent this. They're calling it sarcopenic obesity, right? Because just because you're super thin doesn't mean that it's healthy, right? Like you got 30-year-olds that are having difficulty maybe getting out of a chair because they have like muscle wasting and bone wasting. Yeah, you definitely want to watch your protein intake, but also like pair this up with some kind of like resistance training just to kind of keep those muscles strong. Now, Novo Nordisk is the creator of Ozempic and Wegovy. And as we all know, pharmaceutical companies have never done anything wrong or bad, and they've never been sued ever. But in February of last year, a multi-district litigation class action lawsuit was filed against the company for patients that had non-arthritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, gastroparesis, gastrointestinal issues like bowel obstruction or cyclic vomiting syndrome. The law firm is Miller and Zois, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, LLC, and they are taking 8 different types of claims that involve the following: gastroparesis, hospitalization over 1 day for GI issues, esophageal injury requiring surgery, ileus or bowel obstruction, sudden vision loss of non-arthritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. You basically just have sudden vision loss. DVT and related injuries including death, pulmonary aspiration, and gallbladder injury that required surgery. Only if you started taking the drug prior to 2022. Now, if you've actually taken Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, Rybelsus, or Trulicity, I recommend reaching out to the law firm. I put all of my resources in the show notes so that you can go and find it there. They also do have a number, 1-800-553-8082. Make sure you get that bag, okay? Don't get out of bed for less than $750,000 or more in a private island. And just to embarrass the company, make the CEO get on the ground and do a little crab walk. As of right now, they have 1,443 cases, but they are expecting to see quite an uptick with the drug becoming more popular and affordable this year. One of the newest lawsuits is a Michigan woman who says that Novo Nordisk negligently designed, marketed, and failed to warn patients about the significant risks associated with the drug. The woman was actually hospitalized for several days after she suffered from debilitating cyclical vomiting, extreme constipation, and severe dehydration. A man had filed as well in August of 2024. He was prescribed Ozempic at first by his endocrinologist, and then he ended up switching to Manjaro, prescribed by the same doc. June 2023, he was initially admitted to the hospital with, chest pain, and then transformed into severe abdominal pain. His CT showed that he had ischemia and bowel obstruction, and he had to go in for emergency surgery to resect that part of the bowel and remove the dead tissue. There are many lawsuits. I mean, I'm talking a shit ton of lawsuits on this page that are just talking about chronic issues of like gastroparesis, diarrhea, constipation. There's even like fecal incontinence due to these medications. And there's 3 scary additions to the side effects that are on the rise and should be addressed when taking these medications or just even talking about them. So the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, of Psychiatry found that some GLP-1 medications are associated with increased reporting of suicidality. The World Health Organization Global Database collected adverse reactions and saw that there was an increased report of suicidal thoughts, mainly with semaglutide and liraglutide. There was a stronger signal of increased suicidal ideation in patients that were taking medications like antidepressants and or benzodiazepines along with semaglutide or liraglutide. A research article from JAMA Otolaryngology Head and Neck Surgery looked at a trial involving 351,913 adults that showed that there was an increased risk of developing thyroid cancer within the first year of taking the GLP-1 RA medication compared to 3 other diabetic medications. This is found, though, during early detection and requires further research to understand the underlying cause of this association. Another article for the JAMA Ophthalmology looked at 16,827 patients and found that there is a higher risk of NAION, that's the non-arthritic ischemic optic neuropathy, in patients that take semaglutide. That's at 9% for type 2 diabetics and 6.7% in overweight patients. And sure, it doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, if you're slapped with sudden vision loss, that's going to ruin your entire life. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't sound like that's a lot. It's this big number because you're one of that percentage, right? I mean, you need your eyes for everything. Something new in my field is that patients who use semaglutide have to stop it prior to surgery. I've heard a range, though, from a few weeks to at least a month. That is because the risk for pulmonary aspiration jumps greatly with the use of semaglutide. With the slowing down of your GI tract, you're not pushing along what you eat as fast, therefore leading to an increased risk of aspiration or vomit during surgery. This warning was only added, though, in November of the last year, despite the medication being out for some time. Now, what this is sounding like to me, hear me out, is that maybe we rolled this medication out maybe a little bit too soon before we really understood the underlying issues that semaglutide might cause. I personally get a kick out of it because I know some people who said the COVID vaccine was released too quickly, but man, oh man, they were the first person to sign up for semaglutide. But that's none of my business. Is semaglutide, though, the only medication that we can take to lose weight? Of course not. There are people who benefit from just being put on metformin. There's a few other oral medications that can be effective too. Phentermine is a medication that suppresses appetite and therefore promoting, weight loss for a short period of time because it's a stimulant. So you want to be careful with it, but I'd heard a doctor put it once that, your 300 calorie, workout could, be bumped up to a 500 calorie workout. Side effects can range from increased heart rate, insomnia, nervousness, and constipation. The first 3 are definitely from the stimulant effect of it. Downside, though, is it has a really bad reaction to alcohol, so you cannot drink while on this. Phentermine can also be prescribed with topiramate to help lose weight by decreasing your appetite even more. Unfortunately, phentermine can also build up a tolerance, so you might require more. and it's a Schedule 4 drug, so there's like a chance for addiction or misuse. And like misuses can have some serious side effects like hallucination or psychotic like behaviors. So definitely take it according to your healthcare provider that's given it to you. Now, if this doesn't sound like a good time to you, then number one, don't misuse it. Number two, you could also look to low dose naltrexone, Wellbutrin, and metformin as a form of weight loss. Naltrexone is a medication that is used to treat alcohol or drug abuse. It actually binds to and blocks opioid receptors to reduce opioid cravings. And even if you do slip up and take opioids while you're on it, naltrexone prevents that feeling of getting high. It is essentially a cock block. But this form, it's a low dose of naltrexone. And so the most common side effect that you see is nausea when you're tapering up on it, but it goes away with time, just like pretty much any other weight loss medication. This low dose naltrexone and Wellbutrin route also might be useful in reducing binge eating symptoms that are linked to depression and obesity. This systematic review article on PubMed reviews 3 different research methods worth of articles between 1966 and 2018 and found the efficacy of naltrexone and Wellbutrin to result in 5 to 10% weight loss in patients that took it. Add in the metformin to control your blood sugar, and you're looking pretty dang good. So what if you don't want to take any kind of medication? Is there a more natural route for this? Well, there is. There's a few. There's psyllium husk that can be considered the poor man's semaglutide. Psyllium husk can induce the same kind of feeling of fullness due to the fiber in it, and it actually helps maintain a healthy glycemic balance, thus creating that fullness so you don't overeat. It won't cause you to lose weight, but it definitely can help. Type 2 diabetics that added 10 grams of psyllium saw improved blood sugars. It can also improve your lipid profiles and glycemic response. There's even a study that showed a group that lost an average of 3.3 kilograms when incorporating 3.5 grams of psyllium husk twice a day with breakfast and dinner. Not to mention, it's great for gut health. Allulose is a type of sweetener. It's about 90% less calories than actual sugar. And when studied in a rat model of diet-induced obesity and type 2 diabetes, allulose mitigated the adverse effects of high-fat, high-sugar diets, reduced weight gain, and improved insulin resistance. The allulose group showed lower food consumption and increased levels of GLP-1. There is further research that needs to be explored for long-term benefits, but I mean, those kinds of results in 12 weeks, hell yeah, brother. That sounds way better than shitting myself and being nauseous. I'll tell you, I can deal with anything, almost. I might joke around about in a dramatic way, right? But I swear, when I get nauseous or I throw up, start hospice. I can't do it. That's not for me, dog. I won't do it. A big concern for semaglutide medications is the access to medication via online services. Basically, when semaglutide came out and hit the markets, that allowed compound pharmacies to purchase active pharmaceutical, essentially recipes from FDA-approved manufacturers. So they're getting their ingredients and they're getting this recipe from FDA-approved manufacturers. Now, the intent behind this is to allow pharmacies to modify the medicine to either improve patient access, change the method of administration, or combine individual medicines under the direction of a prescribing physician. So this is where the concern starts. Several companies have launched marketing campaigns and sourced influencers to promote their weight loss programs. This involves, a quick little telehealth consult, if you want injection or oral for medication, home delivery, and then you pay for the medication. These companies even used like the national shortage to really push their own brand, like, hey, look at us, we have compounded medication and it's cheaper, ooh la la. Normally the FDA strictly regulates direct-to-consumer advertising, but these compound pharmacies kind of fall into a gray zone because they're just producing copies of the original product. They don't actually have to attest to following the current good manufacturing practice like regular pharmacies do. So regular Joe Schmo can get this compound semaglutide, maybe get a multi-dose vial, and not fully understand how to dose themselves correctly. The chance for accidental overdose or mismanagement of the treatment plan is pretty high because you're not actually being monitored. You're just kind of left to your own devices. You're not being educated on your dosing. And now there's counterfeit products hitting the U.S. supply chain in these online companies. JAMA Health Forum states that nearly half of online pharmacies offering semaglutide may be operating illegally, operating non-delivery scams, or providing products that don't actually meet quality standards. About 42% of online pharmacies that sell semaglutide are also doing so illegally, operating without a valid license and selling medications without prescriptions. Now, okay, don't get me wrong. Yes, there are people who have absolutely benefited from this medication and they are huge advocates and they will be until the day they die. Absolutely. You can go on TikTok and see all these people who are going to praise the medication, but take what they say with a grain of salt, right? People are going to people, and we're going to end up abusing things that are so readily available. This is another concern. There are people out there that don't really need this medication, but maybe face issues with like body dysmorphia or struggle with an eating disorder. And this is easily accessible to them. And if you're getting it online, like you aren't being medically managed, which is even like a bigger risk to your health. Sharon Osbourne, she talks about her use of semaglutide and how she quit because she lost too much weight and now she can't keep it on. I know media and tabloids really push the thin being beautiful agenda, but being thin doesn't always mean healthy. BMI is a bunch of bullshit and it's outdated. Everybody knows that. Okay, now put your tin hat on with me for a quick second because I'm going to go off the rocker a little bit. I wonder what societal changes will happen if more and more people get on this medication, right? When things are only obtainable by higher status people, celebrities, and those who have money to spend on it, right? So like when this medication came out, you got like the Kardashians taking it, you got celebrities taking it, like unless you have a shit ton of money, right? No one's getting it. But now the regular working class, or sometimes as reviewed, poor people, get a hold of it. What's going to happen? Is it like not going to become cool anymore? You know, you look at Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Champion, flip phones, like all of a sudden because the public can get these things, the upper class of the world, they're like, nah, we need something better or different. I can't be functioning with someone who wears those flip-flops, right? So if everybody started losing weight and being thin, are we going to see a reversal? Maybe having a little junk in the trunk, or as Fergie put it, you got some lovely lady lumps, or is that going to be in? Or are we going to see insurance companies stop paying for skin removal surgeries because we might see an increase of those for the patients who have lost a good amount of weight? Are we going to start doing joint replacements on 20 to 30-year-olds more commonly if they lose too much weight and now their bones are starting to go to shit? Okay, 10-foot hat off now, or you can keep it on and we can go back and forth on conspiracies because I personally live for them. That wraps up our time together, friendship. This weekend is Valentine's Day, so be safe out there. Remember, if it doesn't have a base, it's going to lose its place, and don't put anything into any orifice of your body that you'd be too embarrassed to tell a medical professional how it got in there. Next week, we're going to talk about our first true crime episode, the first Dr. Death I personally had ever heard of, Christopher Dunch? I don't care if I said his name right because he sucks. I also can't call him a doctor anymore because he was stripped of his license and is sitting in a prison, hopefully with bed bugs. See you guys next week. Okay, love you, bye.